With a population of roughly 15 million, Cambodia is a small Southeast Asian nation that shares borders with Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos. The Khmer Empire, which covered a sizable chunk of the Southeast Asian peninsula, was founded in the early 9th century by King Jayavarman II. This signaled the start of an age of prosperity interspersed with sporadic expansionist and defensive warfare. The Khmer kingdom had developed into a strong empire that ruled over the majority of mainland Southeast Asia by the 12th century. The capital of the Khmer monarchs was built close to Angkor, in the middle of the realm. Even though it was only a short distance away, the capital was regularly moved. Between 750,000 and 1 million people lived in Angkor, which was estimated to be 1,000 square kilometers in size by the 12th century. Massive construction projects were undertaken by the Khmer monarchs, who concentrated on building enormous complexes in addition to temples and palaces. There are hundreds of temples at Angkor, spaced 500 meters apart at times and up to 20 kilometers at others. Administrative structures, academic institutions, royal homes, and entire cities were all related to these. Three main styles were used in Khmer architecture. Flat sanctuaries are enclosed courtyards with the temple at their center that were intended for use in palaces and villages. Mountain temples, having 5 quincunx-shaped towers atop tiers of terraces. Exquisite detailing and carvings, windows had molded columns that resembled timber, and walls were covered in elaborate designs. The Khmer were experts at managing water, building vast networks of canals for transit and irrigation. They were able to transport enormous quantities of stone from quarries that were many kilometers away thanks to this network. Additionally, they built enormous moats and reservoirs that supplied the populace with food, fish, and water. The Hindu religion, which predominated for a large portion of the empire's existence, was revered by Khmer rulers as a god-king. Nonetheless, several emperors, most notably Jayavarman VII, the greatest builder of the late 12th century, embraced Buddhism. After his successor restored Hinduism, Buddhism eventually overtook Buddhism as the most popular religion in Cambodia in the 14th century. After Thai assaults, Angkor was abandoned in the 15th century as the Khmer Empire began to crumble. The temples were eventually forgotten as the jungle grew over them. Henri Mou, a French naturalist, rediscovered Angkor in 1861, which led to a surge of exploration. Significant restoration work was undertaken by French archaeologists, although the Khmer Rouge regime, World War II, and the Cambodian Civil War stopped their work. In the 1990s, restoration got underway again, and foreign teams helped Cambodia preserve its remarkable legacy. With its 1,500-meter length and 1,300-meter width, Angkor Wat is the largest religious monument in the world and the most notable of Angkor's numerous temples. This symbol is a source of legitimate pride for Cambodia, as seen by its inclusion in the country's flag. Angkor Wat is surrounded by 200-meter-wide moats and has multiple courtyards with rectangular walls and tunnels connecting them. Its exterior courtyard has long since vanished, although it was originally occupied by structures built of perishable materials. The enormous blocks of stone required for its construction were transported via networks of roadways and canals. Contrary to most Hindu temples, Angkor Wat's main entrance faces west. The grand doorway appears enormous due to its pyramidal tower and elaborate pediment. A second set of encircling walls and a central pathway are reached after passing through a sizable paved courtyard beyond the entrance. Out of this outside courtyard, just 2 modest buildings, commonly referred to as libraries, remain. It's unclear exactly what they do. The timber architecture of the past is reflected in these rectangular buildings with molded columns. Naga sculptures, serpents thought to be manifestations of the divinity Vishnu, line either side of the central walkway. With their heads widely apart, Their bodies create balustrades that extend for hundreds of meters. The central temple mountain can be reached from the second courtyard, which is elevated above the first. Cross-shaped pavilions serve as its entrances, and the central tower is surrounded by roofs of various heights. The walls are decorated with intricate carvings and reliefs that portray historical events and figures from mythology. Particularly in the second gallery, Angkor Wat's 1,200 square meter bas-reliefs are its most famous feature. One must stroll through the galleries to appreciate these intricate carvings, which evoke a sense of movement and engrossment in the tales they convey. Visitors from all over the world come to this breathtaking location to be in awe of the Khmer Empire's architectural mastery and cultural heritage. During the first millennium CE, Hinduism, a combination of revealed texts, popular epics, and philosophical traditions, spread throughout the Indian subcontinent. The Ramayana, an epic poem composed between the last centuries BCE and the early centuries CE, is the source of the first scene in the gallery, which is located to the left of the entry. It tells the story of the valiant exploits of Rama, a powerful and virtuous manifestation of Vishnu. Because his father's second wife was jealous and wanted to secure the throne for her own son, Rama, the son of a king, was exiled for 14 years after marrying Princess Sita. Rama, Sita, and his brother roamed a dangerous and demon-infested jungle during his exile. Sita was eventually kidnapped by the demon king Ravana and imprisoned in Lanka, present-day Sri Lanka. To save her, Rama formed an alliance with Hanuman, the commander of the monkey army. The result was a titanic war with fierce fighting and magical weaponry. Even with the demon king's 20 arms, Rama eventually vanquished Ravana. This narrative, which features the Battle of Lanka, is shown in a relief that is more than 50 meters long. The carving's traces of color indicate that they were formerly painted with great vigor, producing an amazing visual impact. Another epic battle, this one from the Mahabharata, the second great Hindu epic, is shown to the right of the main entrance. It describes a dynastic conflict between the Pandavas and Kauravas, two clans that vied for control of Hastinapura. The ancient rivalries, curses, and jealousies that drive their conflict are examined throughout the epic. The Pandavas fought a great war in an attempt to regain their kingdom after first losing it. Vishnu's incarnation, Krishna, helped the Pandavas and made sure they won, albeit at a high human cost. The relief depicts scenes of chariots, jewel-encrusted swords, and intense warfare from the 18-day-long Battle of Kurukshetra. The relief technique, which was greatly influenced by Indian art, highlights the significance of the principal characters by emphasizing larger figures and recurring rhythms. Because of years of devotional touching, some of these reliefs are weathered and polished. The story continues on the second courtyard's walls, which are adorned with legendary themes that are only broken up by entrances. King Suryavarman II, who ordered the building of Angkor Wat in the 12th century, is portrayed in the reliefs in the western portion of the southern gallery. The king is seen in the reliefs sitting elegantly with his legs crossed in front of courtiers and generals. He is portrayed as being larger than everyone else, signifying his might. Below, elephants and chariots accompany the marching columns of soldiers. Since Suryavarman II was the first Khmer ruler to be shown in this way, the 19-meter-long relief marks a breakthrough in Khmer art. Suryavarman II had good cause to use these engravings to highlight his authority. He oversaw multiple military operations as a monarch to enlarge and unite Khmer land. By dedicating Angkor Wat to the god Vishnu, he also encouraged worship of this deity. He continued to be associated with Vishnu even after his death, as evidenced by his posthumous name. Of special interest are the 63-meter-long reliefs on the eastern wall of the South Gallery, which show both heaven and hell. The living are in the center, the damned are at the bottom, and the blessed souls in the sky are at the top of this significant depiction of Hinduism. Yama is the god in charge of the judgment of the dead, determining a soul's destiny depending on their actions throughout their lifetime. Hindus view hell and heaven as transitory phases in the reincarnation cycle. In anticipation of judgment, which will decide their subsequent reincarnation, the living present Yama with offerings, such as sculptures of gods, fans, and other presents. Only Yama, sitting on his buffalo and brandishing numerous sticks, is aware of the actions of the living and judges them appropriately. Since the temple used to have a sizable staff, the priests and temple servants were probably housed in the woodland region outside the temple gates. One of the temple's most well-known reliefs, located beneath the eastern portico, depicts the churning of the ocean of milk, a key tale in Hindu mythology. The demons clutched the head of the serpent Vasuki, while the gods seized its tail. Amrita was among the jewels that surfaced as they scoured the ocean. Following a battle between the Devas and the Asuras, Vishnu finally stepped in as a stunning nymph, diverting the demons' attention so the Devas could obtain the nectar. Many gopuras, or projecting doorways with towers characteristic of Khmer architecture, can be seen in the temple's second courtyard. These open areas, which are influenced by Indian architecture, include curved roofs held up by pillars and are adorned with a variety of pediments and moldings. One reaches a smaller, more austere courtyard with simpler construction and varying rooftop heights after passing through this second courtyard. Here, elaborate but broken decorations adorn the gopuras and pavilions. The enormous central sanctuary, which stands in for Mount Meru, the home of the gods, is the focal point of the temple complex. Each of the three recessed terraces on which this temple is situated is decorated with images of dancers, minor deities, and heavenly beings. The center sanctuary, which was once only accessible by the king, is located on the upper terrace, 43 meters above the earth. The difficult climb to the divine world is symbolized by the temple's steep stairways. Often called a quincunx, the center tower is encircled by four smaller towers that symbolize Mount Meru's 5 peaks. Sandstone blocks were used to construct the towers, which were decorated and carved in a variety of ways and stacked in a pyramidal pattern. The Angkor Wat complex took hundreds of thousands of laborers to construct, using an estimated 5 million tons of stone, and was finished in less than 40 years. Buddha statues, which are still revered today, were kept in the chapels of the towers when it was converted into a Buddhist temple. Although major repair efforts have been underway since the 1990s, many of the original statues and reliefs were tragically destroyed during Cambodia's civil war in the 1970s, particularly under the Khmer Rouge dictatorship. The biggest religious structure in Southeast Asia, Angkor Wat continues to draw both tourists and believers. Visitors arrive to take in the temple's imposing architecture at sunset, which is evidence of the area's rich religious and architectural history. The temple served as a hub of culture and government in addition to being a place of worship in a bustling metropolis that saw hundreds of visitors every day. It represents the strength and splendor of the Khmer Empire at its height in the 12th century and is a symbol of spirituality and tolerance. King Jayavarman VII's Temple of Phra Khan, located north of Angkor, is less frequented but no less important. The temple was originally Buddhist, but in the 13th century it was converted to a Hindu temple devoted to Shiva. Both celestial and demonic figures flank Phra Khan's entryway, which also symbolizes the Hindu myth of the ocean's churning. There are many representations of the gods and other heavenly creatures as well as elaborate sculptures that shed light on the temple's religious and historical significance as you pass by its monuments and through its courtyards. The remarkable accomplishments of the Khmer Empire are reflected in the temples of Angkor, which cover a sizable region including cities, villages, and places of worship. These temples, which were constructed over many centuries, represent the fusion of divine might and architectural genius. Each building was intended to pay homage to the gods and uphold the tradition of the empire,